All right. Not sure exactly what happened with our feed, but thanks for showing up here. I see some people starting to come into the broadcast right now. I'll give it just a few seconds here, and we'll start going. Today, we're going to talk about tempo specifically. I invite you to ask questions through the Hangout app, as well as using Twitter. I don't know what happened here to my link and why it didn't work, but it completely disappeared on me. So I'm just going to give a few more seconds here. Let some guys join us. I know I'm getting some tweets right now about this. You guys just are patient and we will get going. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here and we'll get started. I screwed this up last week, so this week we'll try to, I think I got all the bugs worked out. Okay, I'm just waiting for my screen to come up here. This PowerPoint I'll put up as well. Let's see. I just want to make sure I have this time. Should be able to see me right now. Was I able to get that on there? No, screen share is not working again. Okay, hold on. Boy, technology is the greatest thing until it doesn't work. All right, one more time here. Start the screen share. And you should be able to see it right now. So, tempo, it's the most underutilized thing in football. Offense needs to control the tempo of the game. And that's something Rich Rod said a little over a year ago during one of the bowl games. He was a commentator. And it's something really he's always shared, that tempo is something, that most teams don't use. And I keep losing this screen share. Try one more time. Okay. Present to everybody. Okay, there we go. So, we good? I think I got that now. You're really messing with the psyche of the defense when you go at the fastest pace possible. One of my friends and a great coach, Andrew Coverdale, who's the offensive coordinator at Trinity High School in Louisville, Kentucky, said that one time when we were clinicking together, and I showed him some of the effects that we were able to get by utilizing tempo and being able to run up tempo against teams. I apologize here again. All right, present to everyone, and I'm live. Okay, so. All right, are we good? For some reason, I keep losing the screencast here. I'm going to go so I can see it in the background. So as far as tempo goes, tempo is something that will be used as a weapon, and this is our philosophy, to keep the defense off balance. We want to have tempos that speed up play and tempos that slow down play. And in varying our tempos, we keep the defenses from keying in on our formations and force them to get their calls in early. This will be something that allows us to be effective in our look, tempo, and variation. So when we started this thing, we were doing a lot of what everybody does in that we were looking at the defense and trying to see what the defense was doing and changing our plays based on that. Now, over time, that kind of became ineffective, and most defenses would start to, change when we change. So we started to look at other things and add some other things into our repertoire. And from there, this really grew into, I think, about 17 tools. 17, we call them tempos, but they're really procedure tools and how we communicate and get our information in. And that's, what I put into this manual. If you do have a chance, I suggest you get it right now. It's on my store for all devices, and I've put over 2 hours of video in, all the instructionals that are going to go into detail, probably more than I can in 45 minutes or an hour tonight. But there's plenty of information there for you. Continuing on with what we think about tempo and or how we're trying to teach those things to our players. We're going to have some general procedures. So these have changed over time as well. In fact, when I was at Baldwin-Wallace University, these apply now. I went to into a different conference here, and I'm at Oberlin College now. And we abandoned some of these primarily because one of the teams that is in the conference, I had either coached or coached with or cliniced with everybody on that coaching staff. So they knew everything we're doing. So we had to change some of those things. But the whole thing really behind this is the idea. You can be creative with this, and I suggest that you find ways to fit this into what you're doing. So the main thing, though, whether you do it this way, you do it some other way, we do it a different way right now. The main thing is that you have some kind of procedure that you use within your system. Okay? So for us, it starts with how we look at the sideline and how we communicate with our players. So they read it like a book. They're reading from left to right. Within our system, we had, in this particular one, we had two guys holding cards up. I'll show that picture to you here in a second. We had two signalers, and then we had, the picture board with 4 pictures on it. And all of those things were either live or dead. Always the tempo one was live. It was the first one. And that's the very first thing we wanted our players to look at. Let me see if I can change this slide and hide that. Okay, here we go. Maybe that's a little bit better. Okay, so it's the first thing we're going to look at, and it's going to dictate our procedure. So all 11 offensive players, they have to look at it. That's the one thing our offensive line has to look at. We tell our center he has to be responsible for communicating that, and we want everybody to know this is our tempo, because some of it can be just that one card, and we're ready to go. So as the ball's being spotted, everyone hustles to their spot. We tell them they're on a run, not a walk or a jog. They need to get to the football and get set. We want to address the defense. We want the defense to get set. We want to force their call in and then go from there. After addressing the defense, the signal card is next. Then the formation signaler, personnel signal card, I'm sorry. Formation signaler, and the last is a number. And so we used wristband numbers that will coordinate with the play. We at Baldwin-Wallace were up tempo most of the time. We had a bigger roster. Usually we were, 2 or 3 deep on our defensive line, and I'll talk a little bit about why that was important to us. And we were 2 or 3 deep at our receiver spots. So we wanted to be able to go as fast as we could. So we're going to line up in tempo all of the time. We want the appearance that we are going as fast as possible every single play, even if we were slowing our tempo down. And we talked about that being part of effort. We wanted to be 100% in procedures. We had full control over that. And again, force the defense to get the call in. When we false cadence, and we had, in this particular slide, it says in look, but we actually had a couple different tempos where we would false cadence. Everyone needed to be aware that the defense jumping and the ball being snapped. And then we had the quarterback would just use a code word chill to tell everybody to relax. Now at the college level, we have to get the ball snapped. As soon as somebody jumps offside, if we want to get the 5 yards and have a free play. At the high school level, that's not true. So it's a great opportunity really at the high school level when you're using false cadence to be able to get people to jump off sides and get your free yards. And as you're going here, there is a question and answer feature on here. I'm new to this too, so if you want to use Twitter, you can use Twitter as well to ask some questions here. Okay, moving on. Okay, substitutions then. Our substitution really had a procedure as well. So we had one coach who we call the director, and his responsibility is to communicate all of our things, the tempo, personnel, formation, and play. If he's calling all those verbally to the personnel going into the game. So we would have all that personnel behind the director. We did use multiple personnel groups. I think the most we used in a game was 9. It was just various receivers trying to use their skill sets. But most of the time there's, 3 to 4 base personnel groups that we're going to use. He's basically conducting a short huddle on the sideline, giving all information to the group coming in, and they're going to hold till they see their sub. So we were very disciplined about that. We didn't want someone who was coming off the field, just because he saw the personnel board and he knew he was coming off, we didn't want him to move right away. We didn't want to give extra time to the defense to start moving people in and out of the game. I know from being upstairs, our defense does it all the time. They want to see who stepped out front of the coach. So we would step everybody out in front of the coach and, not give away, try to take those extra seconds to not give those things away. And we would get those guys into the game. Now, I'm going to step back for a second and talk about changing personnel. My viewpoint on that has really changed quite a bit because the defense now has I'll answer your question in a second, Coach. The defense really has an advantage now, and anytime you change personnel, at least at the college level, the officials are standing over the ball, and they're going to hold it. In fact, we've had times where, we get pretty upset, especially our offensive linemen. We're ready to go. We've had our guys on the field for some time, and, the defense has the ability to stand out there and take a look at our formation and do all those things. So we needed to use something a little bit different for a couple of reasons, but we came up with, we called it a chaos huddle. It's basically, the sugar huddle or fire alarm huddle, those types of things that you see a number of people do. Gus Malzahn is one of the ones that kind of looked at it from. So the chaos huddle really then, became one of our procedures here in the last year for 2 reasons. One, we were changing personnel, and 2, we needed to slow the game down. We didn't have a big roster. We don't have, a number of guys to get in the game like the previous place I was at. So we have to be concerned with chewing up the clock. So how do you get the effects of not showing the defense what you're doing, not showing your formation, and giving them very little time to recognize it? Well, our chaos huddle was the answer. And I'm going to try to for some reason, I keep losing screen share when I go to the full screen here. I'm going to try one more time, but if not, you'll get the gist of it from looking at this. So the chaos huddle is this. We're going to get in a huddle. We're going to get to the spot we're supposed to be in. We're about 1.5 yards off the ball. The quarterback is backed away. He's the one getting the call, though a lot of our receivers will look over and get it as well. He's going to come in the huddle. He'll make the call once and release the X and the Z. Now, we also had a procedure where those guys would just go in a line on the outside and get the call. And then we'd have times where we were in the huddle. We call it, our red tempo. So he's going to watch the clock, let it go down to 10, break the huddle quickly, and then we're trying to get the ball off in 3.5 seconds. So this is what it looks like. Again, 1.5 yards off the ball. He's going to come in. He's going to make his call to the first group, the receivers. They're going to split out. Okay, he's watching the clock. He's watching to see, first of all, that they're aligned, watching the clock, running it down, and then he's giving the call to everybody else who breaks as fast as they can and get aligned. And again, the goal is to be off in 3.5 seconds, okay? We'll even include some motion in here. Motion might add, 1 second more, but again, it's very effective in getting to the ball. The defense doesn't have necessarily a lot of time to recognize, call strength, do all the things they need to do within, what they're trying to do to get their things done. So it's a way to preserve up-tempo without actually being an up-tempo team. Yeah, this keeps disappearing on me. So I'll just go off of the side here. Okay, so moving forward, and I'll kind of go over the main things here. This is something, in these next screens, it just showed how we would get into overloads. I think it's a great procedure to be able to use unbalanced in there. And then operating times really became important to us as well. We wanted to get our players, as we were moving through camp, this was something we focused on every day. We had somebody calling out op times throughout practice, and we wanted our players to really be good at that. I got to pause for 1 second here. Okay, so whether you're going out of a huddle like this or you're going no huddle, having procedures, having an understanding that this is our philosophy, this is part of how we do things, and the next part is really making it part of your play call. It's part of every single one of our play calls. It gets scripted. We game plan tempo. I'll get into that a little bit later. I did have a question about that, and we think about it really in, how are we going to use tempo to do what we want to do and to control the defense, to get them to have to operate at a fast pace to keep up. And really, we even think of it as we have tempos that are counters to our other tempos, okay, and they give us some advantage. So, using the huddle, we did feel had some advantages as well. Obviously, it's a place to communicate. You do lose that when you're no huddle. So I think that's an effective tool to use. If you're, I would suggest that if you're changing personnel, it's something you might want to think about, as you're moving forward. So our tempos then fit into some different categories, and I'll give you an overview of everything we have here. Again, I have these outlined, and I have like 75 cut-ups in my manual, my digitally enhanced manual, that you can see all of these and how I go through and explain, illustrate, voice over exactly what we're using and how we're able to affect the defense. So these are just what we call them. Our look tempo allows us to call a formation and play, get the defense set, look over the sideline, and make a change based on what we see in the press box. Our no play is basically a freeze tempo. We're going to come to the line of scrimmage as fast as we can. And this is one, it kind of serves as a decoy to our again. So we're going fast, we're running the same play again, or we're running at an extremely fast tempo. We got the defense really thinking we're going right away. We get up to the ball, yell out our cadence set hut, and if there's movement, we snap the ball. And then our huddle tempo, I went over one of the huddles we use, but that's a way for us to do a number of things. Obviously, it'd be a 4-minute offense. It's a chance to disguise some things. We've done that before for trick plays or for formations we hadn't used before, to get out of the huddle very quickly and show the defense something maybe they haven't seen and give them little time to adjust. Okay. I mentioned the sideline procedures. We went over that. I'm gonna continue on through here. Going into our speeded up tempos. So our base tempos, we call them, our fast tempos. We got fast, faster, and fastest. So we have our run it, which is our base tempo. Okay, so we're gonna call a play. It would sound like this: run it, Brown's the personnel. The formation, rip 6. If we have a motion, add that, J7. And then the play, which would be actually a wristband number, so it could be 26, which would be power right, for example. So again, the call would be run it Brown, RIP 6, J7, 26. That's what I'm saying to our director from upstairs, what he's relaying to our players, and what starts going down the line from our cards all the way to our picture board. Indy tempo is something we use primarily as our 2-minute drill. These are 10 slots on our card that reserve for our 2-minute tempo. They have a formation listed, and the skill players are looking over for the number only. Offensive line will get the number for the QB, and we use our short cadence. Again, is a tempo we use to speed it up. It's one of our fastest tempos. It allows us to run the previous formation in play, and the offensive line gets a code word, or actually they don't. They're going to look at the tempo board and see it. We try not to verbalize our different tempos. We don't want the defense to start, cueing in on what they're hearing. So we're looking at the sideline for a tempo. We don't want to be yelling it out. It's a cue to the defense, and that's something that these boards give an advantage in. Even when we get into like picture boards and word tempo, all those things are silent. Our players can see them. We don't have to verbalize them and tip off what we're doing. A flip it is really something for a boundary sensitive play. Again, we get in a formation. Let's say we're running a 3-by-1 zone read with a bubble, or 3-by-1 stick draw. We want the 3 receivers to the field. If we want to do it again, we just signal and flip it, and we line up in the opposite and run the play. Picture board is used for everybody, so they see that we're in picture tempo. We go right to the end. We skip over everybody else. We take a look at the picture board, and we have the play. Okay, moving forward. These are some of the different tools. As we've gone through, we've added to these. Okay, going down the line, I mentioned look, no play. We use a hand signal. Huddle. Milk it is one where we're in 4-minute. Run it. Indy is our 2-minute. Again, flip it, no play. And picture board. And we used to use those with just a city and state, and really the only thing that mattered to the players was the first letter, which indicated the tempo. I'll go over some of these later. So as I went over the basics there, first of all, do we have any questions before I continue on here and get into some other ideas? I am not going to attempt video. I've had, worked around with it today, and it shut me down a few times. So I'm not going to do that. I don't want to lose the broadcast, but I'll keep going through some of these ideas. If you have questions, either use my Twitter or go ahead and use the question and answer link on the side here. Okay. So moving forward, this is what the sideline looks like. Okay. So this would be an example with a picture board. Let me move this out of the way here. Okay, so this was what it would look like. We have the tempo board, which was a city or state. Okay, and this is, again, I've kind of reinvented what we're doing. So I think what this does is show you some ideas for what you might be able to do on your own, and think about things in different ways. We were creative, and we kind of used the type of procedures, used the ideas, and now we're into a completely different way of signaling these, but the structure kind of remains the same. So we have a tempo board. In this case, Wyoming, the W means word tempo. So when everybody sees this, they skip all the way down to the one quadrant on the board that would have a word. And I'll go over kind of the idea behind those and how we set some of those up. Okay. Everybody else in here is dead. All these pictures are dead. That's what we look at from the sideline. So, if we're looking at, run it would look like this. Okay. We have run it Brown. We have the formation signaler. Okay, so he's signaling, in this case, west, 1, and this is dead in this case, okay? And it kind of just goes through the different things like that. So when we would teach our players this, and it's something I felt was important, our first training, and this was in a spring practice, we actually did this for spring, is we just put the R out front. And when we go into camp and we're starting new again in camp, we would use just a training board that had the R. We wanted them to understand the only thing they were really looking at was that. It doesn't matter what city or state is after. You know, I certainly like to use different things, try to use, you know, combination of places from the East Coast, the West Coast, North, South, warm places, cold places, you know, just to try to, anybody who's trying to decode us, try to mess that up. And I think we were all right. You know, we didn't have anybody filming those things. So we would also be careful on the sideline to be sure if we had anything from behind, usually like at our home games, that we didn't have, we had a whiteboard that would go behind, because most of these cards had flip side to it. So we'd have a white behind so they couldn't see what we were doing. We would use something called bounce tempo. It was one of our faster ones, but this is how we incorporated shifts. So a bounce tempo would mean go ahead and align wherever you want first. They're skill players. They had some simple rules, like they couldn't shift all the way across the formation. We wanted them to kind of be on the same side or in the backfield, or if they were an interior guy, they could go from the opposite side. They had to end up in the formation we wanted. And it would happen pretty quick. As soon as everybody's hand were down and set to go, we would shift and move into something else and go through our cadence and go. So it was a chance to utilize and put in some shifts, some motions, again, disguise what we're doing, but move at a very fast pace. Moving forward, some other tempos, you know, our basic bounce rules are there. The sideline would look at this, like this. Again, B meaning the only thing. Our personnel were NFL teams in red. Check tempo was one where we would kind of slow things down. I talk about this quite a bit. I have a few articles on the blog about this, that I think if you can find a way to put your checks out on the field rather than in the press box, your offense can work at a faster pace, and also you take the defense's ability to check away. When you're looking away, they're going to look to the sideline and change things. I think defenses become comfortable doing that. There's not really a comfort level, though, as much as when the quarterback's making the check right out there on the field, and we're able to go, you know, incredibly fast still. So he might see one or two things. Sometimes he can false cadence to get an indicator. Other times we told him, if you don't need the false cadence, don't use it. Make your change real quick and go. And our quarterbacks got pretty good at looking just at one or two key indicators and going. And again, when they go to the sideline, as I said this, you're going to see it's, at least in this system and how we set it up, the key was just that first letter. So Cincy, Chicago, any kind of C. Okay. Kind of an overview here. Another one we would use, I mentioned Indy, I mentioned picture, I mentioned word, which was just the one word call. Openers are something that we would use at the beginning, and openers gave us the ability to go very fast at the beginning of a game. Even when we were changing personnel, we would go ahead and move, you know, as fast as we could on and off the field. And the idea was to give our players, you know, the plays and get going right away, get us into a rhythm. Would they be plays that we feel good about? We game plan for those as a coaching staff and really talk about what are the things we feel best about. When possible, we would kind of try to predict even what situation we might be in. So if we run those first two plays, maybe we feel like, okay, we could get into a third and medium or a third and short here, and this would be a good call. So we don't have to go off script as much. We've had a lot of success in running our openers. We've had times where we've even, you know, got through those and went back and repeated them again. The first time I used these, you know, was in, I think my first year as a head coach at the high school level. And we were playing a team early in the season, hot night, much bigger than us up front. But they had a lot of guys playing both ways, and we felt like we wanted to really gas them and go as fast as we could. So we used a wristband with plays. I think we had put 12 of them on there. We went through it 2 times, and by the time we got through it the second time, the score was 35-0, and it was midway through the second quarter, and it was a team I really felt on paper could have beat us up, but we wore them out quick, and it was because we were able to move fast. So Order tempo, we call it. It's the O on the picture board. They are looking only for a signaler at this point is kind of how we would run it. So they would look at the O, and really we would have one guy telling them next play. Every now and then he might signal a different number. We might skip a number, etc. But we felt strongly about scripting our openers within there sometimes, even scripting a shot or even a trick play. Okay, talked about our one-word tempo. I'll go into something with that later. The fastest tempos are right here. Our again tempo, which essentially, again, we're looking at the board. We don't want to give verbal indicators, but we're going to line up as fast as we can, same formation, and run it again. We have a rule we call on the ball, which means if there was an emotion on the previous play, that motion is just a line on the ball where you would be after you had motion. So we'll get in that formation and run it. And I'll try to show you a couple of these things on video towards the end. And if we lose it, we'll just call it a night. But the no play I mentioned, and same formation. So same formation would essentially mean go ahead on the line. If there was motion, it's on the ball rule. And get in that formation, but we're going to change to a different play real quick. So the only thing when they see same is to look for the signal. Same signal is the indicator there. Okay? We don't change personnel in any of those. We want to stay out on the field, obviously, and keep moving. I mentioned the flip it tempo, the no play tempo, our S there, our look. We had used this one, a double look tempo. We got into those teams who were changing when we changed. So what we would do is kind of have a false look. So we'd false cadence, look to the sideline. We tell them to pause for, I can't remember what it was, like 6 or 7 seconds, go back and get set, false cadence again, look to the sideline and get the call. So we never saw defense. When we used it only a couple times, we didn't see a defense change the call a second time. So it was a chance for us, if they were changing their call, to really give a double look and decoy the defense. Let's see, I mentioned huddle and milk it. So that's kind of an overview of all the tempos we used. I know there's some other things we kind of have in development, some ideas we've had. I cover some of those in the book. But that's an overview of all the tempos that we use. Answer a couple questions here, and I want to go into implementing these things. So whatever tempo you decide to use, I think it's important to think about, the different ways you're going to game plan and implement those things. So let me share another. Did I lose you? Crap. Okay, here we go. Let me show another one here. Game planning tempo. Okay. So in game planning our tempo, we want to set up our base plays in tempo. So when we think about those types of things, for us that used to be run it, but these are going to be the plays that first of all we feel good about running without having to look at anything. We feel fairly certain that we're going to get a certain look from the defense, and that makes up the base part of our game plan. So for example, we might know, okay, we line up in a 2-back set. We're going to get the 3 technique to the tight end, and maybe we feel good about running our power O play to that side. So that would be something that we put in our base game plan there, and we would build a package off of that. We get into those gray areas. We're not quite sure what we're going to see, and that becomes really our checks, our check tempo. So whether it's on the field with a quarterback or up in the press box with the coaches, it's going to be a set of plays where if we want to call some of these things, we need to verify something first so we're in a good play. After we look at our base and our checks, we're going to identify fast attack opportunities. So, where can we use our picture boards? Where might those fit into our attack, or our one-word calls? Maybe it is in a base set that we want to put in some picture boards, or we want to put in, a one-word call, or think about using again, or flip it, and having that in our thought process and working it during the week that way. So staying with the base game plan, but finding those up-tempo opportunities to insert and practice those. And again, it's important that those are practiced. The one thing we got pretty good at was putting together a sequence of plays, 2 or 3 play calls where one thing's working off another. We've had, I think I put some of them online, and I certainly have those videos in the book, but you watch the defense and they're getting used to seeing you move, same play or flip the play or something like that. And then all of a sudden you run something off of that, a play action, and the defense is coming up hard to stop run. And you got a guy running down uncovered almost, wide open. Our openers, I mentioned, that's something we plan on Wednesdays. Special and situational tempos. So, looking at our menu of tools, we don't necessarily carry 17 into every game, but we pick and choose some different things we may want to use. So, looking for opportunities to use a counter, to defensive tactics, to use the tempo really as a counter sometimes as well. And I really feel strongly about this, and part of it just comes from my experience as having been a head coach as well, is that I really feel the overall pace of the game has to be something you decide on as a staff. I mentioned the one place where we could feel comfortable in going up tempo because we had enough defensive linemen or defensive backs. We had enough receivers that, when a guy's maybe getting gassed, we can get somebody out on the field quick, that the defense can go out there and be fresh and, have the ability to stop the opposing offense. So it's something really we would discuss throughout the game. There have been times where, the defensive coordinator would tell me, hey, I need you to slow down this next one. We need to make some adjustments. We need some time off the field. And that's what would go into our game planning and really that next sequence of plays that we're calling. And sometimes, it would be discussed and we might say, hey, let's keep the pedal down. Or I'd tell them, hey, we're in a rhythm right now. We need to keep going. But at least everybody's on the same page. So those are important things in putting together the game plan. So implementing multiple tempos. I think, first of all, you need to know what your team needs and is capable of. So it's not me sitting here telling you all these cool tools to use, or someone at another clinic somewhere, or just because Rich Rod said use tempo. You need to figure out what is your team capable of handling. What is the skill set of your team? What's the conditioning of your team? What's the health of your team? That's gone into a game plan for us as well, where, hey, we're just thin and, we need to maybe take some time off the clock, et cetera. So all those things have to go into implementing tempo. Shoot. There we go. Sorry, I haven't had that up there. My bad. We want to define procedures clearly for both coaches and players, make procedures part of everything we do. Expecting to use them only on game day and not having practiced them is going to cause confusion. So it has to be part of your practice. We've done it a number of different ways as we became experienced with our procedures. If we felt we had a time of the year where, maybe we needed to focus a little bit more on slowing it down and technique, or maybe we were banged up a little bit, we could slow it down on maybe a Tuesday earlier in the week. But by the time it gets to, a Wednesday and a Thursday, we want to get into kind of that game mode and, really be practicing those procedures and tempos. So it's part of it. We run, for us, it's those 5 guys on the sideline, and we're running the exact same procedures that we do on game day. Tempo, I really feel like having a tempo signaler for every single play and having all your players look to that tempo first is important. That gives you the ability to go super fast. If it has to be relayed through a number of people, again, that's a chance to slow you down. So that's something to think about is having that tempo signal up front. And again, operating full procedures during team periods and practice. We would actually put the headsets on during the team period, and the director, instead of getting used to just looking off his script, would actually just hear the call coming through so he could verbalize it just like he would on game day. It's something that has to be practiced. I guess the last thing I want to share is, is what I feel are something that every offense can use as far as tempo. I think running the same play again, having a mechanism for when you have a defense on their heels, when you're able to run a play and you know you have them, you know you have the look you want, you know they don't have an answer right now, there's no reason you shouldn't get up on the ball and run that same play again. You have to think about maybe a counter to that if you got them again, or you're running a sequence of plays. How do you come out of it? I love no play as a way to get out of it. You get the defense keyed up to, we're going quick. They want to come off the ball, and all of a sudden you false cadence and they're jumping off sides. I think it's a great way to come out of it. And then varying your tempo from the huddle. If you are a huddle team, there's no reason you can't have multiple tempos out of the huddle, whether that's a sugar huddle or a regular huddle. Not letting the defense key in on how fast you're moving. I've seen, Boise State a few years ago run as fast out of the huddle as some teams do no huddle, maybe even faster than some teams. So it's the ability to again, change the pace of the game, sometimes go fast, sometimes go slow. Having multiple tempos and keeping the defense off balance with tempo, I think, is a huge weapon. And, so those are 17 tools, we've used. I had a couple of different ideas in the book about maybe how you can use those in fourth down situations, doing some things there. I cover Andrew Coverdale's idea on inbounds plays. It's something that he had shared with me. And I thought that was a great idea, something we've used in a number of different ways. So again, it's an underutilized part of the game, but it's something to think about in planning, even game planning and attack. And the one thing that does allow us to get all this in, if you've seen it, is the game planning tool. We have the game planning system, which for us, once we have our game plan in the game plan board, we have 3 practices automatically scripted. We have our call sheets done, including, for us, wristband numbers, and our wristbands were done for us. So I encourage you to take a look at that. It is $39.99 for each side of the ball right now in our store. You get both sides for $5 off. And if you buy that right now, what I'll include as we move forward here, I'm releasing next month, later next month, a customization manual. So if you want to take those templates and fit it to your own purpose, whether that's you want to reorganize a call sheet, you want to reorganize a script, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that step by step, even if you wanted to build it from scratch. My book on tempo, let me pull up that screen right now so you can see where it's at. Let's see. Yeah, if you go to our, sorry, I don't have it here. You go to our store, and I hope I didn't lose you here. Where are we? No, I lost. There we go. If you go to our store, it's thecoachesedge.com/store. You can find this book right now for every device, and it's I think $24.99. Includes over 2 hours of video and 75 game cut-ups that show how these tempos affect the defense, how we use them, every detail that you need. As far as I know, this is the most comprehensive manual out there on tempo, how to run it fast, how we created our picture boards and thought about those, just the different ways we think about tempo. So I think I went into some of those details today, gave you as much of an overview as I could, and some of those details. For about 5 minutes here, we could go ahead and take some questions if you have those. Anybody have questions right now? Okay, so in the offense, the question was, I assume that we're using a large percentage of check with me, and the answer is we really got away from using the stuff where we were looking to the sideline and giving it to the coach, and we gave a lot more to the quarterback on the field, and whether that was to look at for the run game, to look at a 1 technique or a 3 technique or the leverage of a defensive end. More than anything, we were really using coverage indicators in our passing game, and we had within our passing concepts, we have 5 concepts. We had the ability to alter some things to better attack the coverage we were seeing. The next question is, do you have a default formation for your receivers and backs to line up in before they get the actual call? So what we tell them to do is to address the defense. So we're in a fast tempo, for example, really, or any tempo. We tell them that when the ball's snapped, we want you to, address the defense, meaning we want you as close to the line of scrimmage and lining up and making it look like we're going to go again fast. You don't necessarily have to get completely set and up on the line or where you're supposed to be. But we want you to address the defense to get them to get their call in as fast as possible. When it looks like we're going fast, the call has to go in, then we're able to either align from a formation or get to where we need to be pretty quickly and go. We got another question on Twitter. How do you game plan your tempo to draw defense to jump? Is that something that you plan for? I think the answer to that question is it's something to think about as the play caller. If you're into two things, I've used it before. If we were again, and I didn't want to run the same play again, it was a good opportunity to use that no play to try to get them to jump. And then we could always, in our no play, we tell them align, get up to the ball, get set, and then we can move from there. And as long as, the offensive line, weren't putting a hand down and taking their hand out of the dirt, we can move to another formation and then give the play that we wanted. Those are the only questions I have right now. Does anybody have anything else? I'll get better at using this technology, but I appreciate you taking the time. I think we had up to like 25 or 30 guys tonight at one point, but I appreciate you taking the time and looking at this. I'll continue to do some of these things and work to bring some guests on as well, and I will let you know when our next one is. I also want to encourage you, one of the best tools I've seen out there right now is something called Just Play. The website is justplaysolutions.com, and it is interactive learning tools built on top of your playbook. So for me, I've always had a number of workarounds to quiz my players, to get them something interactive, to have them to be able to interact with me. And this really has provided me a one-stop solution. And the drawing tool is just amazing. I had my quarterbacks coach the other day say, what was that thing we were using last year? What was the drawing tool we used? And I, gave him the name of it. He said, yeah, that was garbage. This is awesome. So we've had guys, tell us it's like Visio on steroids if you're a Visio guy. But really excited about Just Play and what they're doing. Feel free to shoot me a line about that, and I could tell you more about it. My email is keith@thecoachesedge.com. You can get me on Twitter a number of ways, and feel free to call as well. Really appreciate everyone's business. We're working hard to get more coaches out there sharing these interactive materials. I really feel this is the best way to learn for coaches. We can give you so much more in these digitally enhanced books. And putting video into them. For example, for $24.99, you're getting 2 hours of video in this tempo book. I have one of Dan Gonzalez's books, which is priced the exact same as you would get a DVD that has 5 hours of video in it. So our coaches do a great job of putting detail in it, and it's really learnable as well, where you would sit down with a streaming video or a DVD and kind of be held captive by it. This is stuff that, you're sitting in the car waiting for you, pick up your kids or whatever it might be. It's a chance for you to keep learning football. I think that's it, guys. I appreciate your time, and let's hang out again next week. Plan it again at 8:15. And I'll tell you what, why don't you guys shoot me some emails or tweet at me and let me know what you'd like to hear. We have a number of topics. I can get some guests as well. I'm thinking right now RPO, unless I hear some good suggestions. We'll go with RPO. The website, again, is for, I'm not sure if you meant mine. Mine is thecoachesedge.com. The other one is Just Play Solutions. JustPlaySolutions.com. Let me see if I can pull it up right here and share it with you. 1 second. Yeah, JustPlaySolutions.com. I'll share that here with you real quick. Where is it? Here we go. Again, it's your playbook. It's interactive learning. The diagramming is amazing. It's video integration from whatever system you have. I've always been looking for a quizzing tool. I used to give quizzes on paper. Then I used Socrative, which is a classroom app, and you know, it didn't give me the ability to use video. These are video quizzes. You could actually embed questions right in the video and have the coaching points come up. Your players can't move on until they get the correct question. The player analytics actually are really cool too. While some give you the amount of time your player has been on there, these allow you to track the player's usage and down to the page view. So, you know, if Johnny didn't run the right route on All Go, you can go on into his analytics and see that, well, he didn't even look at that play last night as we installed it. So it's a great opportunity. It really, I think the biggest thing it does is it extends your film room. So if you're into flip learning in your classroom, this really enhances that type of learning and utilizes time well. So that's it for me tonight, guys. Thank you again, and we'll touch base soon.